So first of all, just wanted on behalf of the Canadian Partnership for Women and Children's Health, also known as CanWaCH, give you all a big warm welcome to today's lunch hour webinar talking about Menstrual Hygiene Day coming up on May 28th. 2020 is the next one. We're absolutely delighted to have you all here, and we've got a broad range of partners joining us today, including those who work domestically here in Canada, those Canadian partners who are doing program for women and children all around the world, as well as colleagues from Global Affairs Canada. So really just welcome. We're really looking forward to diving into an exciting discussion today to talk about how we can all coordinate and collaborate to make MH Day in 2020 a really impactful and meaningful day here in Canada and contribute to the broader global initiative as well. So the agenda that we've sketched out today, of course, a few introductory remarks. We're going to have a poll just to see amongst those who are joining us today who has been participating and engaging in MH Day previously. We are absolutely delighted to be joined by WASH United to give a broad overview of the global initiative and how Canada can contribute to that global initiative. We'll hear from two Canadian partners who many of you will be familiar with, representatives from Plan International Canada, as well as WaterAid Canada, joined by Ina, Saif, and Julie, respectively. And we want to try and leave plenty of time for discussion, questions and answers, and then also we'll be talking about how we move forward from this call and work together in a really coordinated, impactful and meaningful way. If you have any technical issues at all, if it's not working, please reach out to my colleague, Caitlin Reed. She's identified as Caitlin from CanWaCH. She'll be able to help you sort through any technical challenges. The last thing I just wanted to sort of mention is why CanWaCH has brought us here together today and what we hope to achieve moving forward. So as many of you perhaps know, the Canadian Partnership for Women and Children's Health, a membership of over 100 organizations from both the not-for-profit, professional organizations, as well as the academic sector, are working together to improve Canadian programming and outcomes in our work that is centered on women and children's health. And we really see menstrual hygiene as an area and a harbinger of gender equality. And as many of us know, probably all of us on the call today, that poor, limited, restricted, or non-existent access to education around menstrual hygiene products, infrastructure, ultimately undermines a woman and a girl's ability to access improved health outcomes. It impacts her overall social status, and as we know, certainly impacts her ability to complete her education. And so it limits her ability to reach her full potential and ultimately to thrive. And Menstrual Hygiene Day is an exciting opportunity for both domestic and international actors to rally around a common objective, to break the silence on this often taboo subject, and engage with decision makers and the Canadian public on how we can improve Canadian leadership in this particular area. So with that said, I'm going to launch a poll, and it's the question is really simple, and it's just about, has your organization celebrated Menstrual Hygiene Day in the past? And this will sort of help us shape our discussion moving forward. So I'll give everyone a moment to complete that. And while we wait, just absolutely delighted to introduce Ina Jurga, who's joining us from WASH United and who's going to take us through a short presentation. So a few more responses coming in, and then I'll turn it over to you, Ina.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to host this webinar together. And yeah, my name is Ina. I'm acting as the international coordinator here at WASH United in Germany, where it's very late in the evening. So greetings from here in Berlin. My presentation will be a little bit like 10 to 15 minutes. And as we see the poll coming in, and some of you have celebrated and some have not, I wanted to tell you why is there a Menstrual Hygiene Day, what has been achieved so far, how you can take action, especially although we are now in October. Some of you might start plan for next year, so it's a good opportunity to think about this now, even if May feels like it's far away. And then some easy steps, what you can expect, and my contact details. I won't go so much into the details why menstruation matters. Thank you for the introduction. I think the case has been set, and you will hear a little bit more from WaterAid and Plan later. It's about the different aspects, and yes, it's a global issue because half of the world menstruates, so it's not only an issue that is challenging for developing countries, but it's the same aspect around period poverty, period stigma that faces also countries like Canada or Germany, as we can see. So when we started back then, that was in 2011 and 12, with working on menstrual hygiene and health, there was a really big silence. And it's been in pocket in some conference, but overall, only a few organizations dare to talk about it. We had a campaign in India, we had a small social media campaign, and then we thought about how can we create a mechanism that is continue to break the silence and raise the issue on menstrual hygiene. How can we share successes and solutions available? And is there also a way to engage decision makers in advocacy to increase political priority and action? And not only here in a global level, but also at national and local levels. And we thought, we know Global Hand Washing Day and we know World Toilet Day, and these are good days, but could we, as WASH United, actually initiate a day ourselves? Could we be so brave enough? And we consulted with a few partners early on, and they said, no, let's go ahead, we support you. And yeah, so we decided to move ahead. And the MH Day was first celebrated in 2014. We had maybe 15 partners back then, but also, for example, WaterAid was supporting us already from pretty early on, and I think Plan too. So that was in 2014. Now we have a partnership of more than 530 organizations, showing that it's really a momentum that's been building up. And now Menstrual Hygiene Day is the biggest global advocacy platform that brings together voices of nonprofits, government agencies, individuals, and also the private sector and media, who all talk about menstrual hygiene and periods on the day. And why 28 May? I think that you probably can guess. 28 is, so to say, the average length of the cycle, and May, the average length of the period. And it's also a good hook to always remember why we celebrate. Moving into what has happened, and as I mentioned, 2014, we started very slow and small, and we grow every year. And last year we had more than 700 events in more than 70 countries. And you can see the increase here, how that has developed over the years. Social media went crazy this year with over 317 million people reached. And as I mentioned, we have much more partner organizations joining now. I want to give you some impressions how diverse those events look like. So it's going from a stakeholder engagement in Tanzania to really trainings, pad donations. We have religious leader joining in India. We have very, very diverse all around the corner. I know it's been celebrated in Canada, but I would leave that for your presentations later on. So just want to give you how diverse it is. We hit headlines like never before. Also just a snapshot of the big names who featured all stories. And that's a really nice hook, because media always looks for good stories, and a day is really, now we can see media coming to us instead of us pinging media. Media outlets have it now in their calendar, which is great. And this year, we've also seen more influencer support than ever. I think she's also a household name in Canada, Kourtney Kardashian, and she posted on Instagram a post, but then she talked really nicely about teaching your sons about periods. And so this was the biggest post on periods that has been there in the media. It was liked by more than 2 million people. So, and we didn't pay for her. She knew that this is Menstrual Hygiene Day, and this has been extremely crazy for us when we saw her tweeting about it, Instagramming. I wanted to tell you why, what kind of wins we see for the MHD strategy. Why was it so successful, or why we're able to grow it that big? So first of all, as I mentioned, it's a topic around the world. It's not only a topic so everybody can rally behind it. We're always quite broad in the annual theme. So no matter if you are in the USA, or if you are in Vanuatu, or if you're in UK, you can always match with the theme. The third point is quite important. So we provide ownership to every organization. So we as WASH United, we're hardly seen in the materials we send out. So it's all under the banner of Menstrual Hygiene Day. It's not WASH United's Menstrual Hygiene Day, it's a Menstrual Hygiene Day. So we really want that everyone locally and nationally take ownership of the day and is being seen, because we're not there everywhere. So that really increases. The fourth, and I think that's interesting for you also in Canada, we're really trying to speak with one voice and one look. By providing a design feature, I'll have some examples later, but are always using the same messages, you create a much stronger campaign. So no matter if you're in Canada, or you're in Senegal, people are using kind of the same hashtag, but also the kind of look. And then you create a coherent campaign, and you benefit from local and global level, that you're part of this big thing, and it's not your own campaign. So we increase each other. So therefore, a lot of work has been in strengthening that a unified voice and style. And lastly, we're building up on more and more strategic partnerships. So such as with CanWaCH, who is a network in itself. So if you think about 530 partners, and we have many more supporting MHD, it's sheer impossible for me to manage everything. So right now we're moving into who are really impactful partners that have networks themselves, such as you. And here you can see a little bit how we do that. And also, I think maybe interesting for you. So we had a campaign. The value of the campaign was $320 million US. I don't know what happened here, but happy to send it to you later. And that's with a kind of small input from our side. So it's creating this huge, by leveraging partners and media, we're able to create this big impact. These are some of our strategic partners that we engaged. And some of them are donating money, and some of them are donating more of their reach on especially on national and global level. And lastly, when I look backwards, I wanted to share, especially for those who have engaged already and those who are ready. So we've moved the theme, or what we want to advocate for, from really building the first awareness back in 2014 when we said, let's start the conversation, let's end the hesitation, to looking at no more limits, and last year to it's time for action. And that really has been a huge shift. And then, especially for organizations who have started working with governments for a couple of years, to really move away from awareness, but really catalyze an action and demand action from ourselves, but also from governments. And that has been tremendously successful, and we'll continue with that theme also for 2020 for very, very sure. So what has the action led to? So we've seen big commitments coming up. So under the action theme. So we had Netherlands, India, Ghana, and UK using MHD as a platform to make commitments and, for example, launching something or making commitments. And I think here I highlighted the mayor of Toronto, and I think you followed that probably in the media when you're in the last year in 2018, the mayor of Toronto announced to mark Menstrual Hygiene Day as the citywide awareness day. And this year he followed up with a commitment. And that's exactly kind of the trajectory we're so excited about, that it's not that suddenly decision makers start to take action and make commitments, which you can hold them accountable for as well. We last year, and you might have seen that as well, we created a global symbol to drive action. That is the action bracelet. It has 28 beads with 5 beads red, but it can also have different colors in blue or in yellow. That doesn't matter. It's not an education tool. It's an awareness tool, and by wearing it, you show your support, and you have very different activists, but also like the World Bank, and we distributed at the G7 meeting. It's a very, very nice symbol, and people wear it with pride. You can use it in creating dialogue, but you can also distribute it in trainings just to make it themselves. So that has been a wonderful addition. And again, that will be something that we will continue to promote in 2020. What we always do is providing partners with a set of materials. These are a set of ready-made materials for events, such as poster and social media materials. And here, what is special, and that's what I said, there's always a way where you can integrate your own logos. So that's something that we feel is really empowering organizations. The second one is the design system that, as I also mentioned before, then you as an organization can create your own materials, and it still looks like you're part of the campaign. And here's the example again from Ghana. And another one, I think that's probably India, if I'm not really. So where they used also the tag, and then they even used the hashtag, and it looks like it's part of the campaign, but it's done by local partners to spread their own message. And we usually have other materials such as video content, infographics, and other formats where you can contribute. So that's definitely something that you can expect as well for next year, and they're all free to use. We have what you also know from other days, there's an event entry to create visibility on what's happening. We usually upload 1 image per event into the gallery, and we're also amplifying on social media as much as possible on engaging. So that's how we can support partners. I'm looking at time, I'm rushing a bit through, but you'll get the presentation later. And there's another theme that we launched under the action for, that is the action for menstrual hygiene education, or education on menstruation for girls in general. So we launched it last year and asked partners, how many girls did you educate on MHM in 2018, and how many girls are you committing to educate in 2019? And if you look at the numbers, there's been a 52% increase on the commitments of partners, from up to 41.4 million girls to be educated. And what we'll do in next year is to really monitor if the organizations have reached these numbers. I mean, it's not bad if you didn't, but just feel that you're held accountable for what you commit for. We feel like as much as we hold governments accountable for their commitment, we also want to hold us accountable and also contribute to getting numbers that are really important for advocacy. So what can you expect for Menstrual Hygiene Day 2020, or what I hope you could do is, first, please create awareness on the issue on the ground and in the media in Canada or in your respective country office. The second one is advocacy towards the government to take action. And I think it's always better to coordinate this and have one single message that could be on taxation or product donations or a policy, etc. And of course, under the theme of actions, we're looking forward to get your achievements and actions for MH Day, but also on education. Because now it's October, I wanted to give you a timeline for when you can expect something. So in March, we have Women's Day, where we definitely engage. We're building up the campaign usually in March, where we then start with the action for MH education. In March, April, you get to know the theme, and the hashtag and campaign materials will be usually available by end of April. So, and we celebrate on 28 May. Please subscribe to our newsletter. The newsletter is, you get infos on MH Day, but you also get infos on MHM globally. We call it the periodical. So you get resources, events, etc. Follow us on social media, and there are also my contact emails where you can contact me directly. But otherwise, Caitlin and the team from CanWaCH, they're your closest ally, and I'm sure to continue to coordinate and channel all information through them. Thank you very much, and please feel free to ask me questions in the chat box. And yeah, moving on to hear from Canadian partners how they've worked on MHM and used MH Day as a platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ina. And we're now delighted to have Saif from Plan International Canada talk a little bit about their past engagements and participation in celebrating Menstrual Hygiene Day.
Thank you very much. The idea in this presentation, which I'm going to present, is basically to give you an example of how Plan International Canada observed the Menstrual Hygiene Day this year in 2019. Since 2018, we in Canada are conducting a survey to access female and male views on menstruation in Canada and sort of getting our advocacy around that. Not to mention that in our all programming in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, we do observe this day and host or organize events that way. It's one of those days which Plan International Federation-wide observes. So as I mentioned, this particular presentation we gives you an example of our Plan International Canada's advocacy with media in Canada to observe the Menstrual Day in 2019. So the key findings of the survey which we carried out in 2019 was about 4 areas we looked at: and awareness regarding period poverty in Canada, existing taboos and myths, the impact of menstruation on social and economic participation, and call to action for making menstruation products free of charge as a human rights and not as a luxury. So it was sort of getting engaged with the media through social media and to the regular media, and then also ensuring that our listeners or viewers or people who participate in that not only just get the information, but also give them an opportunity to take part in action. So in May this year, 2019, the survey was carried out across Canada with 2,028 females and 1,000 males. An idea was that we capture the attitude and behavior of girls, women, boys, and men towards menstruation and support for free menstrual hygiene products in a range of settings: workplace, public spaces, schools. Yeah. So we looked at within the Canadian context and tried to come up with this perceptions. And also the research basically highlighted both social, emotional, financial costs of menstruation, especially women under 25. Now, this is a view of our landing page, which was sort of went public on 28th May this year. And where we basically highlighting the fact that like in British Columbia, we were promoting that we need to help youth in Canada access free menstrual products in schools. British Columbia, as I mentioned, has done it. Other provinces and territories that we are trying to create this demand and pressure or advocacy that this change should happen. In the previous presentation, we heard about how the mayor in Toronto has made some changes. So these are the findings which we shared with the media, both print and electronic media, through telephonic conversation, through appearances on the media, by various colleagues from the GE units and others. And the idea was to sort of highlight these key findings. And I'm not going to read all those sort of text bulleted here, but just to give you the sort of flavor of the key points that we mentioned. So only point, for example, we indicated here that broadly finding that period poverty and limited access to information is experienced by women and girls and those who menstruate around the world. We know that, but also in Canada. So that survey sort of re-emphasized that fact. It's not sort of a southern issue that only happened in Africa or on Asia or Latin America. It's also happened in Canada. So we cannot sort of keep ourselves sort of in this bubble that everything is fine in Canadian context. So clearly we're talking about, that women who have to adjust in their budget to buy the products. 34% women and girls in Canada talked about that. 63% women who menstruate or those who menstruate had missed out on activity because of their period and concerns about not being able to access these products. 41% those who menstruate say they did not receive information about menstruation. Yeah. And also 28% from school teachers that talked about it. They did not receive this information. Another finding which we sort of emphasized here is that girls, women, and others who menstruate still face shaming and teasing. And that's how the women and girls have reported, and those who menstruate, that accessing menstrual hygiene products, but also when seeking information and support around their menstrual health. 58%, yeah, almost 6 in 10 women and girls said that they had to lie about it. Another area was to look at how men and boys sort of responding to that and what sort of support is available. So even though the women and girls were talking about that they are or they have experienced shaming or sort of have to lie about it or teased about it, 41% Canadian men and boys that they were being comfortable talking about this with males or females about women's bodies and health, including periods. 67% men and boys in Canada reported being comfortable purchasing these products for their female family member or their partners. And 55% have actually done that. So which is sort of shows that there is a space here and there's a support available by men and boys in Canada. The key advocacy message in my concluding two slides, basically what we're saying is, as you know, the Plan International talks about define normal, and the normal is that for too many girls and others who menstruate is not having access to these menstrual hygiene support or information. So by writing to your Minister of Education, for example, to advocate for free supplies in public schools in your province territory, that was one of the key focus, or key advocacy message which we did. In April this year, the British Columbia, we mentioned earlier, became the first province to mandate all public schools that provide free menstrual product for students. It's a, I guess, culmination of the joint effort of all those who work in these issues. So 93% of female who we surveyed and 80% of male that we surveyed this year also support that having these menstrual hygiene products available for free in schools. So it's sort of in line with that, and that's what we're saying is one province has done it, so others also need to do that. There is increasing public demand for that. And then May this year, the federal government announced a policy motion to provide free menstrual hygiene products in federally regulated workplaces around Canada. And in our survey, 81% female, 75% male supported. The idea was that through these media engagement and advocacy, talk about that these actions have taken place at policy level, and then reinforce with what people have told us. Sharing that information is reinforced with that demand. Lastly, we asked about to our audience or people who are listening to us or paying attention to us or listening to sort of social media influencers who work jointly with us, there are 3 action points. First, visit our Plan Canada Period Matters page, and where you can find a letter template to write to your Minister of Education to advocate for free supplies in public school, 1. Second, support us, Plan International's work, and help provide girls around the world where we work with basic supplies they need to manage their health. So typically by giving us the resources or donating money to us, so that we can ensure that around the world girls can get access. And lastly, join the conversation around menstrual equity with Plan Canada Online, or with hashtag Define Normal or hashtag MHDay 2019. So that's broadly speaking, the idea was that, okay, that you engage media with the information, with statistics, because media loves data and statistics. Talk about it. Also talk about what policy action that you have happen, or what policy action that you want, and then promote a dialogue. Get people engaged in talking about it, so that it becomes no more an issue that you taboo or hidden behind, but the curtains or whatever, but you talk about it, and get not only women and girls, but men and boys to talk about that. So that was what we did last year, in 2019 and also 2018, and in next year we'll have more plans. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And our final presentation is coming from WaterAid Canada. Julie Truelove is going to walk us through what WaterAid Canada has been doing around MH.
Thanks to CanWaCH for hosting the discussion today. WaterAid's really happy to be part of the discussion to bring the Canadian WASH sector into the plans for MHDay, and really it's an opportunity to highlight where we can align this work within Canada's feminist international assistance policy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about WaterAid's approach to this within our global strategy, and then also give some highlights from a program in Pakistan. And just for that note, I wanted to just also recognize my colleagues, Hina Kauser in Pakistan and Therese Mahone with WaterAid UK, who lead on much of this work. So this is the WaterAid global strategy. The rings in the center are our global strategy for everything that we do, and then the blue boxes to either side are how we're embedding menstrual hygiene and menstrual health into the work that we do. So under the equality pillar of the strategy, we look, of course, at gender and also disability, and how to help reach women with disabilities and how they manage their menstruation. And under the hygiene pillar, there's a lot around infrastructure and MHM-friendly toilet design and things like that, and also much to do with behavior change and practices, so that women and girls can safely manage menstruation with dignity. Under sustainable services, we look at sector strengthening. That's like the WASH systems in a country and how can they be more responsive to MHM, and also getting into the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, that kind of thing, to hold duty bearers to account. Under the integration pillar, we look at how to further strengthen MH in terms of WASH in schools, WASH in healthcare facilities, and then increasingly also into the area of SRHR, as well as using menstrual health and hygiene as a foundation of SRHR. And the boxes along the bottom, that's really the comprehensive package that we look at, that we'll talk about through the Pakistan example, in terms of information and awareness, the MHM-friendly infrastructure, materials and supplies, and then building that enabling environment. Pakistan, and along with Nepal, is probably the most advanced work in menstrual hygiene that WaterAid has at this point, and arguably Pakistan is a very challenging environment, but we've really found that this has been a really strong and practical entry point to meet the needs of women and girls from the WASH perspective. So there's 123 schools across the districts noted there on the map. So in terms of the context here, we're really looking at aspects of girls' confidence and participation at school, and how to link all of this back to the ability of girls to access and benefit from quality education as a pathway to empowerment. So some of those measures, the bullet points there, will just be examples of what we're looking at. It is a school-based program, as I mentioned, and these 4 pillars, I won't go into detail across these, but these are the same, that comprehensive package that I referred to, that really all 4 of these pillars we found are really needed to sustain interventions. One of the things that I think has been most impressive of this from WaterAid Pakistan has been these tools and resources that they've developed. The Menstrual Hygiene Matters Guide, which I think WASH United may have been involved in that as well, is a global training manual. But then the other three are specific to WaterAid Pakistan's work, including this conversation guide, which I think has been a really useful tool in terms of how do you spark these conversations and where do you begin to have conversations about a sensitive subject matter that may be uncomfortable for people to talk about. So the conversation guide has been really useful. There's a flip book, which is basically like a graphic novel kind of comic book, I guess you could say, all around menstrual hygiene at school. And then there's a related video as well. And you can access any of those resources at the link at the bottom. And if you do have a few minutes, do watch the video. It's quite good. In terms of design and sustaining behaviors, so the female-friendly toilet design, we could talk all about that in and of itself, but I wanted to just highlight a few things from that list that came about through the program, one of which is girls requested mirrors to be able to check their clothing before they were leaving the toilets, having a storage cupboard of readily accessible supplies when and where they were needed, looking at hooks for hanging clothes while changing, locks and privacy, really critical. And then one of the biggest challenges we have in this as well is looking at disposal, both from an environmental perspective, but then also how can girls dispose of their pads discreetly? Nobody wants to walk across the schoolyard to put their pad in a bin or something. And so it's really always a challenge to look at what's appropriate within each context. For sustaining behaviors, it's all centered around a WASH club with teachers nominated and trained and representatives from each class, and then broader interactive activities taking place with students, including things like celebrating MH Day. So this is, again, looking at measures of confidence. We looked at missing days of school due to menstruation in the previous 3 months, confidence in participating in school, and then also ability to manage periods at school without having to go home. And you can see Nepal's involved in this program as well, so you can see the measures for both there, and there's quite a significant change across the measures. So the key learnings, those 4 major components are really key to changing attitudes and practices. Involving the female health workers has been really critical to get buy-in from the Ministry of Health, and potentially it can be a link to the SRH mandate, which is under the Ministry of Health. This sort of gradual awareness activities to increase ownership has been essential. Also, the MHM resources in schools, including a supply of pads and cloth, both available, have really been critical to meet the needs of girls. And again, engaging local institutions, education department, all of that is going to help sustain interventions and just, again, build buy-in and capacity to continue this on. A couple of final quick points, I think, increasingly we're looking at how to bridge this into the realm of SRH, certainly in Canada and under the feminist policy. So part of it is also broadening the definition of menstrual health and hygiene from the technical aspects of MHM and moving also to bridge into menstrual health, which is more broad, physical, mental health, and well-being. We see an opportunity through the WASH lens, which tends to be fairly non-controversial under the WASH portfolio, to enter into these more taboo and sensitive subject areas. It can be a good entry point through WASH. And also, as everybody's already stated too, it's a critical moment in the life cycle of adolescent girls in terms of a timing to start talking about reproductive health and the rights of our body and beliefs and practices, and also engaging boys as well. There's some of the resources there at the bottom. There's links at the end of the slides if you'd like to have a look at any of those. And just lastly, I think in Canada, again, as has been said, this is a universal issue. So it's also a way to bridge some of the domestic and global priorities of the Canadian government and draw some attention. Under the Thrive agenda, menstrual health and hygiene has been it was included under the Accelerate sort of area of adolescent health, and also for better connected and focused WASH, and also the integration piece, which even through to economic development and the WASH for Work campaigns. We have some evidence-based pathways paper, WASH pathways, where we've positioned WASH in feminist policy. And also WaterAid has a new program, her WASH SRHR, which again is focused on menstrual health and hygiene across Pakistan, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Burkina Faso. And how can we use that as an opportunity to also engage Canadians in this issue that really is universal?
Thank you so much, Julie. We'd like to spend the remaining time having a discussion with all of you. And also, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat box. As I mentioned, we'll answer what we can in this setting, but we'll also follow up directly if we run out of time. And our first question is if any of the other participants on the call today have some insights, lessons learned, reflections on previous MH Day activities that as individuals or as organizations you've undertaken.
It's Julie here from WaterAid again. Last Menstrual Hygiene Day, we actually had some really big challenges in getting media uptake on it. We had one of our athlete ambassadors was ready to do interviews and poised with information, but we really had a difficult time. They actually wanted us to change the topic.
Thank you for that reflection, Julie. I think it's sort of a similar challenge that we have across a broad range of the issues that we work on, but I think menstrual hygiene is that extra step in terms of being incredibly taboo and why our efforts around MH Day are just so critically important. From CanWaCH's perspective, I think we're really excited about being able to coordinate with our members, our domestic partners, who we had the pleasure of working with through the Women Deliver Mobilization Canada, leading up to Women Deliver 2019, and really galvanizing all of that energy and momentum that we saw and continue to see from both the explicit reference to menstrual hygiene in the Feminist International Assistance Policy, as you spoke to, Julie, and also the very underpinning of menstrual hygiene as a key area of acceleration in the Thrive agenda, and how we forward to seeing that holistic approach to programming for women and girls. Yeah, and for Canada to take the lead on that. And I think Menstrual Hygiene Day gives us that moment for all of us to rally together. And Ina, you've provided some really great tools. There's so much at our fingertips, and we can just decide as a sector how we want to adapt them to the Canadian context.
Good morning, ladies. My name is Jamie. I'm calling in today from Edmonton, Canada. But I'm originally from Sierra Leone, and my organization is a sport academy that uses sport as a platform to advocate for women and girls in Sierra Leone, to showcase their talent and to help them stand against their adversities. Last year, we started advocating on the Menstrual Health Hygiene Day, and we did it so without even having the appropriate banners and everything like that. But that really came about when some of our girls into the sports program had quit the programs due to their periods. And so I got the phone calls from two of the coordinators from the district there saying that one of the coaches report that some of the girls, well, 3 of the girls are missing from the program for about 3 days now. And so we did a follow-up call to the parents, and we found out that it was because it was very scary for her, of course, when they get their first period and they don't even know about what it is about. But what had happened is that apparently she was playing and she saw a spot on her bum. And so some of the girls had told her that she maybe sat on the Kool-Aid package, because Africa, we have like these Kool-Aid packages that people drink, and then they just toss the plastic bags everywhere, and they say, oh, you just messed up your bum. You probably sat on a Kool-Aid plastic bag. But she touched it, the spot was a little bit too larger than, normal, something that somebody would just sit on the water. And then going down, she went back on the field to play, and then she saw a stain dripping down her leg, and the coach didn't understand how to handle the situation. So basically, she said the coach had asked her to leave the training that day and go clean up herself and come back the next day for training. So on her way home, she couldn't even get any cab or like motorcycle to take her home. So she walked all the way from the field, which basically covers about close to 2 miles. And the look that she got on the way, there were some men on the road, some boys on the road, the way, like the whole gesture just made her feel so invaluable. It made her feel so awful that she didn't even return back to the program 3 days after until we had to follow up with her. And so Salimatu is back into the program now, but with regards to our capacity as an organization, we're struggling with regards to programs to even do trainings at the various schools, because we do our programs at a school league level. So we don't even have necessary training materials that we can run training programs at the various district level, at the school, even to educate. I like how the presentation from the WaterAid had some of the trainings for the girls at the school levels, and they're trying to put some initiatives in place that would be much more valuable and sustainable at the school level there. So I'm asking, how could maybe CanWaCH help me in that diverse way to be able to implement some training programs at the school level through partnership or program collaboration? How do we access maybe funding to run this project? Because we have well over 700 girls countrywide at the 5 districts. We have well over 700 girls in our programs right now. And to me, I'm looking at really next year. We have our AGM coming up on November 16th. By next year, I really want to start running this program at the community level, even to educate the parents. Because growing up in Sierra Leone, I never even remember my mom one day talking to me about my period. It's just a big taboo. It's just a big taboo. So for myself, growing up, when I came to Canada, I first saw my period here. I didn't even know how to handle that in school. But luckily, I was in gym, and my phys ed teacher had taken care of the whole situation. And luckily, the school didn't have anything, but she had something in her locker that she went and gave me a pad. So that was very good. So this is what I'm advocating for, basically, right now. If every school can have a free, menstrual hygiene product for girls to access, and just not for Canada here, but make it worldwide, it will be beneficial to not only the students, but even the parents at the community level. And we're also looking at putting up a training center, because Africa, one of the challenges we have is recycling. So we're looking at having to see how we can access funds to put women into creating a more, recyclable menstrual hygiene products, or reusable ones that they can basically make for themselves, and having that access at the various districts. And I really want to go, I don't just want to do it at, maybe in the district. If I have funding and maybe partnership from either one of you guys, this could really, really go a long way for the women and girls in Sierra Leone. So really that's basically what my question is right now. How can I have access to tangible training materials, support, funding, and partnership in program delivery, so we can help the lives of girls in Sierra Leone a lot more better off, and they can have a lot more acceptance at school when it comes to their first period, please.
Thank you so much, Jamie, for the reflection on your personal experience. CanWaCH right now on a separate project, but under our gender equality portfolio, is working on some training modules around gender transformative approaches into Canadian programming. So all that to say, would very much ask that you connect with Erin, whose email I've included in the chat box. I'm also cognizant that we are very quickly running out of time for our hour together. Again, just want to say a really big thank you to Julie, to Ina, and to Safe for joining us today to share what each of them respectively are working on. CanWaCH really looks forward to working with our members and partners I'm just asking again, if someone isn't on mute, to please just put yourself on mute. About coordinating around MH Day 2020. Please indicate your interest with Erin. We'll schedule some calls and also just start to brainstorm. I know everyone will be doing their own organizational priorities as well, but it would be great to think about how as a sector, both domestic and global, that we can come together and really just make it a huge impact here in Canada, and engage our leaders and decision makers and other stakeholders in a creative and compelling way. So thank you all so very much. Look forward to being in touch in the coming months, weeks and days. And again, please don't hesitate to reach out either to Erin or myself at any time if you'd like to talk further. So thank you all so much. Talk soon.